All right, so this is Phil from PDQ Merchant Enterprises and ATM Mastermind Group page, and we're going live as we usually do every other Monday night at 6 Central time. So I thank you guys for joining us. Let me just want to make sure. Okay, just want to make sure that we were live. All right, so today's subject that we're going to talk about today is ATMs, the investment vehicle nobody told you about. All right, so I just thought we'd start here. I talk about my little story here when I started in the ATM business and how I got started and what did I learn. All right, so I originally, just so you guys know, I originally started in the amusement and games business and amusement and games operator for probably about 3 years at this point. This was in about 2000, and I was in a location and I saw what they were at that time was an ATM. There was an ATM placed in this bar that I was collecting on amusement games. And so when I got done collecting, I went down to the owner's office was in the basement of this bar. So I got my quarters, I went down and I gave him his revenue share from the amusement games. And I said to him, I said, "What's that in the corner there? Looks like an ATM." He says, "Yes, it is in fact an ATM." And I said, "Well, I thought those were just for the banks." And he says, "No, that's what I thought too. But this guy came in, talked to me about putting an ATM into the bar, told me how it works. People just put their card in, just like the bank. They ask for money and they get their money." He says, "Now," he said, again, keep in mind, this is 23 years ago. He said that, the kids nowadays in the bar, they don't really have a lot of cash. They constantly go down the street to the gas station and get cash. And so we don't take credit cards here. As you know, we're just cash only. He said, we put this ATM in there. It doesn't cost me anything. I have this ATM in there and they can get cash out of the ATM. And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question." I said, "Why didn't you ever ask me to put an ATM in this bar?" And he said, "Phil, you're in the ATM business." I said, "I'm not in the ATM business, but I just didn't know why you never asked me." He said, "Well, I never thought about it, to be honest with you. But until this guy came in and he told me about it, then I realized, you know what, maybe it's something we do need." He explained to me how it doesn't cost me anything and they can get cash and they can spend the cash in my uh, business. So I said, "Okay, I got it. Let's I said, "Well, would you ever consider putting me into a location or giving me a referral?" He says, "Well, I'll tell you what, this guy came in, I did this deal. I don't know this person from Adam. I know you. So if you just ever decide to get into the ATM business, then you know what? I'll get rid of him and I'll put you in." So I said, "Okay, well, there's an opportunity. I understand now that I saw like a little light bulb went off. Okay, A, I'm already in the location. B, I have a relationship with the guy. C, he said that if he would do business with me if it wasn't for this other guy." And I thought, you know what? Here's an opportunity. Here's what we can do. But I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to get an ATM. I didn't know where to buy one. I didn't know how the whole process worked. I didn't know what other things that I need. Well, I just want to make sure. For the ATM, I had no idea of what I was doing. So, but it literally took me about 2 months, month and a half to try to figure out, okay, where can I get the ATMs? Then what I had to do is had to convince somebody to buy an ATM because at that time there was nobody to buy them from. You had to buy it from a certain source. So I had to convince somebody, what we call them distributors back in those days. Had to convince a distributor to go out and buy the ATM. And then once they got the ATM, then I could buy it from them. So we went through this whole process. I got the ATM. I started getting this whole process worked out. And then I went back to the bar owner and I said, "Look, I have the ATM now. Are you going to honor that situation?" And he says, "You know what? In fact, I will. I'm not really happy about what's going on with the guy anyway. So you know what? No problem. I'm going to tell him to get out and you can come in." And now we'll put an ATM in there. So we did that. And I thought, well, here's an opportunity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this opportunity to go to other bar owners and I'm going to see if this works out for them. So that's what I did. I went to another two bar owners. I said, look, I got an ATM over at this bar. And they said, well, I thought they get the whole story all over again. I thought those were for banks. And I said, no, there's an opportunity that now what they did is they deregulated it. Now anybody can get into the ATM. Well, what's it going to cost me? They said, it's not going to cost you anything. We're going to put it in here. At that time, though, it had to be on a phone line. So it was a little complicated because now we had to get a phone line to be put in there. But, a lot of bars back in that time, they had a payphone. So what we did is it was an 800 number. We could find out where the payphone number was. We can go on the backside of the payphone, and anytime somebody go to use that, we could use that. Or if they didn't have a payphone, then we could do is sometimes they had a second line or a fax line. So we went and we went and did that. So we went on their fax line, or they had a pizza line or something, because the calls are going out, not coming in. So we put a couple more ATMs out, started looking at the revenue, and the revenue wasn't, and I'm going to be truthful on this, the revenue was not what I needed it to be. It just wasn't enough. Now, back in that time, surcharges were at $1. Okay. The ATMs cost about $8,000, and we weren't making hardly enough money to pay for the ATM. So we had about 3 out for a while. I wasn't going to expand business. Some people started asking me, hey, Phil, I see you got an ATM over here. I heard about it. Would you consider putting one in over for us? And I was like, guys, I just can't make any money. And to be honest with you, it's costing a lot of money to have it. So we're just going to take a pause right now. Well, what happened is then ATMs went down from 8,000 down to 5,000, down to 4,000. And now it's like, okay, we could put on twice as many, but the revenue still wasn't there. And then I thought, you know what? If they're asking to put the ATM, why don't we raise this surcharge from $1 to $2? They didn't want any money. So now the cost of the equipment went down, and my surcharge went up, and they didn't want any money. So I said, okay, let's try some more. So we put on about another 4 out, and we started doing about 75 transactions a month. Well, it's $150, and my cost of the product went down to 4,000. So I'm thinking, okay, in about 2 years, I can make money. And then I noticed that the gas stations were at $2, and I said, you know what? Forget this. I'm gonna go to 250, be 50 cents ahead of the gas stations. I keep 100% of surcharge, and we're gonna see what happens. And you know what? The surcharges, the transaction didn't go down. They stayed the same. So I thought, I'm making 250. We're almost doing 100 transactions a month. That's $200, that's basically almost $3,000. It takes me about a little over a year to pay for the ATM. And I already have 3 paid for. So now I could add another one. And then pretty soon we added another one. And then I was at a bar, and the owner was complaining because he was cashing checks for these people, and the checks they were bound. The people didn't have the money in their account. So he was mad because he would cash checks week after week, and about 10% of the checks that he cashed weren't being redeemed. So he couldn't redeem, and the bank then bounced the money in his account, and then he would get overdrawn, and then he would have to pay non-sufficient charges to his bank. And it was all because these guys were bouncing checks. It was all because he was cashing checks. So he was constantly yelling. And I said to him, what if there's a way that you don't have to take checks anymore? You can still get money into your bar and restaurant, and you don't have to worry about this. He said, man, how much is that going to cost? And I said, look, it's not going to cost you anything. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to put an ATM in your location. He said, I thought those were for banks. I said, no, it's not. See, and I keep hearing that. No, it's not. And we can make money off that. And he says, I don't even want any money, Phil. Just as long as I don't have to get any more checks, that's enough for me. And I said, you know what? I appreciate that, but you know what? You always take a chance on me. I want to give back to you. And he goes, no, again, I don't want the money. Don't take the money. He said, let's do it for a year. Let's see what happens. And then after a year, if you're okay with that, then we'll see about me giving the commission, because I'm telling you, I'm going to save hundreds of dollars every month from the checks not being bounced. So you're doing me a favor. I'm happy. So I said, okay. So then I took that idea and I went to bar after bar and I said to them, look, I can do this service for you and it's not going to cost you anything. And they said, man, I love it. We don't have to take checks anymore. And those locations were good locations. We were doing between 100 and 200 transactions a month. After it took a little while to get ramped up, but then we started doing it and I didn't have to pay any commission. So this worked out real good for us. But what happened is I saw an opportunity. I took that opportunity. I already had a built-in customer and I knew how to leverage that. So we went into a different line to start with this business, and it worked out. And sometimes in life, you got to take those chances. But I saw the opportunity. I didn't hit it out of the park right away. I fumbled a lot. I didn't know how to buy the ATMs the proper way. It was really not cost justifiable. I didn't know how to communicate because we didn't have anything but dial up. And I didn't and I didn't have anybody to help me. And nobody even talked about ATMs back then. So it was only a select amount of people. There was no national organizations at that time that I had to learn on. It was nothing. So, but we kept trying and kept fumbling and kept making mistakes time after time. But we learned from those mistakes, and I eventually got better at the ATM business. And then, and this is the funny thing, in about 2006, 2007, they were pushing a lot of internet into the bars, and I thought, why are we on dial-up when we could be on internet? And it didn't make any sense to me. So the processor that we were with, they were all on dial-up, and I said, this doesn't. I don't understand uh, how this can be. So I researched. I found a couple companies that were processors, and I had meetings with them. And the one processor said, "Well, unless you're got 50 connections coming into us, we're only going to do dial-up with you." And I said, "Well, we do." And I fibbed a little. I said, "Yeah, we got 50," just to see if they would do it or not. And they said, "Well, if it's 50 from one a chain location." And I said, "Oh, I'm not." I said, I have a bunch of individual ATMs." And they said, "No, we have to do it for one, like a chain. We could do that." And I found another company that would do this. And they said, "Yeah, we can do that. We're just starting to do internet." They called it TCP/IP, um, is what they called it. And he said, "We're just getting ready to do TCP/IP, and then what we can do is we can start you out." So I thought, okay, because some of the locations we had a dedicated phone line, cost me $30 a month, cut in my profit. And I thought, well, if I can use the internet, if they had internet at the bar, then it didn't matter, and I could utilize that to make more money and provide actually a service. That maybe we could get the internet in there, and some of the ATM could pay for it. Some of my jukebox business would pay for it, and we could actually make a little bit more money. So that's what we did. We found a solution again, and we started making money again. So I just want to share with you that little story um, about the ATM business, how I get started, what some of the challenges that I had in the beginning. When you start in business, no matter where you start, you're going to have some challenges. Sometimes it's financial challenges, sometimes it's equipment challenges, sometimes it's service challenges. You will have to navigate through the money waters of business. That's what being in business is all about. It's not easy. It's not set up to be successful. It's set up to be to make you fail. I mean, that's what business is all about. But if you have successful partners, if you know who they are, if they can help you guide and avoid all those, what I call the gravel road of business, you can avoid the gravel road of business, then you can be successful, and you can be successful a lot faster than you would be if you were just going all by yourself. All right, we got a question. Let's see. Why would you recommend the ATM business? All right, so I would recommend the ATM business because of the return on investment. Now, when I was when we were doing business before, what we were making between almost 100% because we didn't have to pay commissions. And the other thing is, if I would put in 5,000 return on investment, so they call that ROI. So I look at what's my return on investment over a given amount of time, which is about a year. So if I put $5,000 into ATM, we were making $5,000 back or more, sometimes $6,000. So I put $5,000 on a weekly basis. I would make $6,000 back on my 5,000 every year. And we did that for years and years and years. We didn't pay because we didn't pay a commission. We were getting good transactional volume. In the cost of the equipment, I didn't factor that in. I only factor the money in because I was paying back the ATMs sometimes as little as 6 months, sometimes as much as 18 months. Well, we were paying that money back real fast. And the more ATMs I got, the faster I paid back the one that I bought. So why I would recommend the ATM business is even today, we're still at around 50%, if not more, depending on the location. So, which that means if I put $5,000 in, I'm making $2,500. If um, or up to 70%. So between 50 and 70%, we're still making money. So if I put $5,000 in, I might make $7,500. It just depends on the location, and what type of locations that you're in, and is there a heavy commission. I learned that in the bar and restaurant business, there's not a big commission. When you get into some other stores like convenience stores, there's a bigger commission. Gas stations are bigger commission. So you got to pick and choose where you go and how much is the commission, because you try to maximize your commission to make as much as you can. All right. So now let's say I want to also tell you guys is how to become stronger in the ATM business. So one of the things that that makes you stronger in the ATM business is you got to continually find new locations. All right. So for us, when we first started, it was easy to do because we already had an existing book of business. We already had locations that we had good relationships with. I didn't have any competition. All I did is I went to our locations and I said, look, we want to put an ATM. I can cut my own deal. And we just brought the ATM in and we were making money right off the bat. It was easy sell. So when we got out, when we sold our music and games business, I had to go back out and figure out, okay, I'm no longer in the bar and restaurant end of it. How do we create new locations? So kind of like what you guys, okay, it's a new business. I'm going into different arenas. I don't have that relationship. What do I need to do? So in 2015, which was 8 years ago, I said, okay, what do we got to do? So what did I do? I started doing what I already knew. When we were looking for locations, what music and games, what was I doing? I got all the beer distributors, all their numbers and names. I knew all the liquor guys. I knew the food purveyors. So I knew those guys. I called them all the time. We share stories. I went to lunch with them. I figured, because what I want to know is they were in the bars and restaurants just like I was, and they had a different route. They already knew. They said, okay, Phil, this guy's changing hands. This guy's selling. This person's new coming in. Somebody's new. So I would get those leads and I would go talk to those people and get it, basically the fruit off the tree. Now I had to do the same thing in the ATM business. How do I do this? Well, I started doing the same thing. I went to the guy who, if I was targeting the convenience stores, I went to the chip guy. Around here, Frito-Lay or Jay's, they were the bigger chip vendors. And so I went to there if I was targeting convenience stores. If I'm targeting bars, what did I do? I went to liquor purveyors. I went to the beer distributors. I went to those guys because they would help me get new locations. If I was a liquor store, I would talk to the lottery guys. I would also talk to some of the liquor distributors and go with some of the liquor distributors that are not so popular. The ones that are always hungry, they're always fighting for shelf space. Those guys, because those guys are always fighting it, and they know what it is to hustle out there. So I would line myself with them. And there's also right now, if you're doing convenience stores or gas stations, the guys who sell the little vape, the little vape stuff, or little not necessarily tobacco, but tobacco paraphernalia, the lighters and all this. Find those guys. Those guys are great. They got probably 100, 200 liquor stores, convenience stores. Get to be partners with those guys, because those people will help you get into the bars and the restaurants. Let me see if I got any comments. I don't want to miss anybody today. Let me just see what we got. Comments. Okay. All right. All right. So that's how I would get new locations if you guys were if I were you. Now, here's something that look, we do mobile ATMs in fairs, festivals, and fairs and festivals. Okay. So we've had a long season, started about mid May, went to Labor Day. And I'll tell you what, we do every week, pretty much every weekend, sometimes 3, 4 events. And Labor Day weekend, we had 4 events. And I was just, you know what? I hate to say it, I was just burnt out. We needed some time to rejuvenate. Um, and so I had some opportunity to do another fair and festival. And you know what? I just needed a break. We were tired. Been a long summer for doing that every weekend. And I don't want to say I left that opportunity off the table, but you know what? I did. But sometimes you need to spend some time with spend some time and just rejuvenate. You know what what I used to call is sharpen the axe. And so that's what I did. I took some time for myself. And not that the fairs and festivals are a lot of work, because they're not, but sometimes we set them up, and then you got to go there at night and take the money out and go in the morning and put the money back in, go there at night. I only like to do 3 and 4 day events because they make the money. Once in a while I'll do a day event, but for the most part I like to do multiple days. So I just said, we had an opportunity to take a weekend off, and we did. Now I was sitting there, I'm looking at Facebook, and I noticed all these fairs and all these fall fests coming up. They got Pumpkin Fest, they got all these fests. And I started looking, and I'm like, look, there's a festival. I don't do that one. There's another festival. I don't do that one. And I noticed there was like 5 or 6 festivals in our immediate area that I didn't even do. And I thought, you know what? Here's a bunch of opportunity to get some of these that for right now. We're up north in the Chicagoland area. There's a bunch all of September, all the way to Halloween or something, every weekend somewhere that they have these festivals. And the nice thing is they don't go, they're not going to like most of the stuff it goes to 11 o'clock. When you get towards the fall, you get towards after Labor Day, they get done at 9 o'clock because it gets dark at 7. So it's not, and sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's raining. So I noticed that, you know what, they don't go as long. We have to pick the money up. It's going to be earlier. That's fine with me. So we make a large amount of money in a shorter amount of time, and it's a good time. So, but I noticed, I just want to share with you on Facebook, there's all this stuff. Just go in and see what's hot in your area. And then if you like one of those things, then you'll be getting in your feed. You'll get more and more and more and more. And it becomes a nice little situation that you guys have opportunity um, for you have more opportunity. Oh, and there's more opportunity for you to do some fairs and festivals. Okay, we got it. Let's see. How long do you look at an ATM activity before you consider relocating the ATM? Depends on the location, but I would say I always usually do 90 to 180 days, which is basically 3 months to 6 months. But it depends on, am I seeing an increase, or if it's just doing, let's say, and that depends on what's the number. If it's doing 5 transactions, it's not, you know what, it's time to move and go somewhere else. If it's doing 55 transactions and it's moving up, then I'm like, okay, you know what, I see some growth, it's getting better, we're going to wait. But I'm still on what I consider the weed list. So the weed list is it's not what I thought it should be. It should be more. And so now I'm prospecting out there for another location. So that's for me. If it's not doing 100 transactions, it's always on the weed list. It's got to do 100 or more. So I'm constantly prospecting for a new location for those locations that aren't doing that number. Now, here's the situation. I'm always prospecting, and then what happens is I'm prospecting, and then I fall victim to this too. I get lazy. In other words, I got an ATM. Maybe it's doing 45 transactions in a location. I should go pick that up. And then what happens is a guy says, "Hey, you stopped in my place. You know what? I'm interested in getting an ATM." And then what happens is now I take one of our ATMs that we got, and I put that, and maybe a brand new one. I put that in a location. And what I do is, instead of pulling that other ATM, because I want to make it happen fast. I want to like, okay, let's get this ATM position in the location, and then I'll go get that other ATM later. Now it's the fall. So for me, this time of the season, is the fall for me is like winter for I guess everybody else. In the fall right now, it's where I'm reevaluating all my business. What isn't making money? What isn't working? And let's position ourselves right now in the fall um, to get better. So my winter is now my springtime where I'm starting to plant. I want to plant seeds, and then spring is where I start harvest. And spring is where uh, springtime is where I'm starting to harvest, and it goes into summer. We get all the mobile events we get, and summer is our best time of the year. Probably because it used to be our worst time of the year, and now it's our best because we've made all these plans, but it all starts right now in fall. That's where we're reevaluating our whole business and saying, okay, what worked this season? What worked in January, February, March, all the way to August, our first 8 months a year? What worked? What didn't? What changes we got to make? And then we make those changes right now in basically third quarter. So, but to answer your question again, 3 months, it's 3 to 6 months, but it depends on the volume. If it's doing under 30 transactions, it's got to go right away. If it's doing over 50 and it's gradually going up, then I'm like, okay, I can wait a little longer, but I don't want to wait too much longer. Is it top then? And I evaluate the business. Is it because what's the reason why they're doing it? Is it hours operation? Is it bad location? Is it bad management? So, all right. Um, and then the last thing I want to say is look, I create those locators, like I said, with the liquor store and the food purveyor and those guys. And a lot of times those leads come in and they'll say, hey, I got a location over here, I got a location over there. And now again, I'm going out, I evaluate the situation. Okay, we'll take a chance, we'll put the ATM in there. But you got to keep in mind is don't grow too fast. We got a lot of bandwidth because we've been in the business for a while, but for the new people that are in the business, don't overextend yourself. Don't say, okay, I got 2 ATMs and now, I'm going to go buy 2 more because I got some new locations. I have partners, people that we started, I call them partners, but people, they don't own our business. They're just people that we started in business, students. What we've done is we've trained them, and then they're like, oh, Phil, I got 2 ATMs. I got 2, I got 3, I got 5, I got 6. And then I look at their route, and what happens is they have 3 or 4 that are really good, and then I notice they have 1 or 2 that they're not so good. And I said, look, because they get excited, and I get that, but so always grow slow and steady. We talk about this from time to time. Don't grow too fast, because when you get through fast, you're not doing your due diligence, you're not evaluating your route. Please evaluate your route. Do it, pick a 3-month section throughout the year and evaluate where your ATM is, and then always have create a system to get new locations, because without new locations constantly coming in, you don't have that opportunity to say, you know what, I got to let you go because you're not making me money. If it just, just basically like baseball, and I'm going to evaluate that. I'm a big baseball guy. Is like, look, you got these baseball players. If they're not producing runs, if they're not putting numbers up, we got to get rid of them. I'm sorry, but we're here to make money, and baseball, they're here to put runs on the board. They have to buy runs. They have to put runs on the board, or they don't win without scoring runs. So we have to do the same thing in ATM business. We have to constantly find new locations that are going to put runs up and make us money. And then we let the other ones that aren't doing very good and you can always go to the owner, and you could say, let's say if you got a location that's doing 40 transactions, and let's say you're paying them whatever you're paying them, if it's 50 cents, even if it's $1, just say, look, it's not, find your location. And then you go to them and you say, look, it's not working out. We need to make more money. I could stay in here. You give them the opportunity. I could stay in here, but I can't pay a commission. So they'll make the decision. No, well, they get your machine out. Okay, great. Perfect. I'm out. And then if they say, okay, you know what, that's fine. I'll keep the machine. I like the service. I don't want any commission. Then you know what, that 40 location, if you got $3, you know what, you're making $120 a month. It might not be the best, but it's another $40 that you weren't making before. And, maybe that might be the difference between what the ATM is doing and you staying or not. And if it's not enough, I know for some people, they're like, you know what? That's great. I like it. To me, 40 transaction is not enough, but some people that is enough. So just give me an example of what I see out there and then how to create more revenue from that ATM. But to me, if it's not doing 100 transactions, it's time to get rid of it. So, all right. So I hope that was helpful today. Thank you guys very much. Just want to let you know we do have a course that teaches you from A to Z how to be successful in the ATM business. We're here every other Monday from 6 Central to 6:30. Then we have a student call at 6:30. Go over some new information or things that could be helpful for their business. And we also sell ATMs and provide processing. If you guys out there, if you're thinking about getting an ATM business or you're in the ATM business, but you need somebody else because maybe the person you're with, they're not helpful, we're here to help. So thank you guys very much. I will see you next week, not next week, but the following week on the ATM Mastermind or on the live. And thank you guys for being part of the ATM Mastermind group. Thank you guys very much. I'll see you in 2 weeks.